We say youth sports builds character. Do they still? Are we really aligned with what the morals are that are going into the character we are trying to teach through youth sports? Well, those questions, that's what we're going to be delving into in this video. So stay tuned for that. Over the decades of youth sports, we've gone from having youth sports organizations have their athletes learn pledges to having more modern day codes of conduct. And behind it all is the modeling of the coaches and parents on what we want them to learn. All those things and more are going to be the topic of this video. Now, over the decades, whether it's Pop Warner football or Little League baseball, or Babe Ruth baseball, or any of these youth organizations that started early on, they had pledges and they were short, something that you could memorize. And parts of those pledges were things about, I will strive to win, I'll play fair, I'll do my best. Those are characters, those are morals, right? We cannot not teach morals. We're either teaching them directly through things like pledges and the rules that we establish, or we teach them indirectly. And these youth organizations, when they first started out, it was a time in our country where they understood the importance of this, right? Whether it's scouting, separate from sports, we had this scout oath and scout law and all these things. People who participated in these were expected to regularly recite them, so they were becoming ingrained in them. Now, when my boys were young and going through Little League, the beginning of the Little League season, we had a big parade. They'd come in, they'd gather, introduce all the players and teams and all that. It was a nice ceremony. It was supposed to be a big deal. They're trying to make it a big deal in order to help keep encouraging participation, all that. But that was the only time these kids ever saw the pledge. I don't think any of my boys ever memorized it. It was a time when it was expected that you would learn it and you were giving it to it. And your coach might even say, hey, can you cite the Little League pledge for me? Can you cite the Pop Warner pledge for me? Whatever it might be. The idea, again, is the more you repeat some of these morals, these character building traits, the more it gets ingrained into you, right? That was the old way. The new way is something a little bit different. So what do you think? What do you think the modern codes are like? Some of you have probably seen them, right? You get them. Multiple pages. Delineated all the things that you can and cannot do. What's expected from the behavior and parents' behavior. What's expected from the coach's behavior, right? A long list of rules. It's a lot different than a something you can memorize, there we go, that is full of these little nuggets of character development. These codes, modern day codes, are what you can't do, right? And they tend to be long. And they are there to protect everybody involved legally, because we've gotten into a situation where if somebody's disciplined, right? If a coach disciplines a young athlete for violating a team rule, he can go back to this code of the league or even his own, which oftentimes a team coach will have their own rules on top of whatever the league itself might say. And everybody signs it. So then when the coach disciplines the young athlete, he can go back and say, no, listen, this is what happened. And here it is. You agreed to this, mom, dad. Sadly, we've been in such a state of lawsuits and blame and pointing fingers that these leagues and their lawyers feel, here, we need these codes. Now, I am not saying right now that we don't need those legal codes. right? I'm not a lawyer, and I'm not going to say you don't need those. What I am saying is they're completely different than those little pledges that kids might need to memorize that are so much richer and deeper with positive moral character traits that are trying to get instilled through regular repetition and memorization of like striving to do my best. Win or lose, right? I will lose with dignity and grace, whether I win or lose. Little nuggets like that are far more powerful in shaping character and the morals of that's what we're trying to do with the youth than these big, long codes. So we've lost the pledges, exchanged them for codes, instead of adding the codes for parents who, also say, listen, Johnny, right? Here are your rules. You've got to make sure you do this, or Jane, right? Where it's not necessarily about teaching the good character traits that can come from competing. Subtle, important changes that we need to understand and think about as if we really think about why we have youth sports to begin with. Now I'm going to talk to all of us adults out there, right? Whether you are a parent, a coach, a fan of a sport, or whether you are in the position of being a professional athlete, or maybe even one who plays sports locally in men's leagues, and you've got kids showing up in games. How we present ourselves is going to do far more for modeling appropriate behavior than anything else. And things have changed over the years. Not necessarily say whether one way's right or wrong, but I could tell you that they've changed because part of what we see people doing and now allow our kids to do has changed. The use, I'll give you a perfect example, right? And I don't like to admit it, but my oldest son was an example of this. And back in my day, I had once in a ski race, right? And I swear I didn't say it, but in the heat of the moment, I might. Going through the gates in a championship meet, I had kind of gone off balance a little bit, regained my balance, but I lost some precious time. And one of the gate tenders apparently heard me say the S word, right? And it kept going. I got down the bottom, I was disqualified, and I couldn't figure out, like, what happened? What do you mean disqualified? I asked my coach, why am I disqualified? I went through every gate. So he had to go find out. He said, well, they said you swore. And it wasn't even the F word, an F bomb, which my son dropped in the middle of a game quite loudly towards an umpire on a call he thought was bad. Are you effing kidding me? Back when I played, automatic ejection. In his day, nothing. Kids would F this, F that. I heard it game after game. Subtle changes that we as adults modeled and began to allow. And I'm not going to say whether we should have allowed that or not. The point there is what we accept as adults and what we model as adults is what we're going to get. So if we have certain character traits that we want our children to emulate during youth sports, we better darn well model that and hold each other accountable as well. So if you have a parent in the stands not living up to that code, winning respectfully and gracefully, then we as parents might need to have a conversation with that other parent. And that can be difficult, but make no mistake about it, right? What we do, they are watching. What we allow to happen with them, what we allow to happen amongst ourselves, is going to become the norm. Well, that wraps up another video, an important topic. Next, I would love to have you check out our video in there. What does losing teach kids in youth sports? And of course, you can subscribe to our channel as well, as we keep adding videos all the time. There's more and more for you to check out every day. So check those out. We'll see you in another.